Margaret.
Item Report 258 of the Chief Executive Richard Shakespeare, in compliance with Section 138 of the Local Government Act, informing the Council of Works which are about to commence and in compliance with the Planning and Development Regulations 2001, Part 8, proposal to undertake public realm improvements to Meath Street. Could I get a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Jackson, and a seconder, please. Councillor O'Murray. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Sorry. Okay.
Can we speak on it? Yeah, thanks very much. Sorry, Councillor Devine, you go ahead first.
You're a gentleman, Mannix. Thanks very much. No, we've been waiting, as this crew behind me have. The leaders of Meath Street are representing the entire area of traders and residents and visitors, indeed. Just want to take issue with the report itself. There's a lot of feeling that the consultation was extremely poor. It wasn't adequate or robust enough. It was taken during COVID, and lots of issues were missed and left out. So while everybody wants to see improvement and are delighted that they're getting a focus on their area at long last, there's just an article in the Irish Times today to say that the inner city for generations, all inner cities are neglected, and perhaps deliberately so, by the powers that be. It's an interesting article. I ask you to read it. It's just published today. But apart from that, we're here at Meath Street. We've been told that it's going to be a very similar public realm improvement as the success of Francis Street. Now, I think some traders there would question that, but it's an extremely different street. We've had our own public meetings. The people have called those. There's at least been 4, and the leadership of Meath Street, who I say sit behind me, and handed in a petition, Lord Mayor, to yourself. Mr. Shakespeare felt he couldn't accept it, but it's asking for them for 5 things, and the most important thing that it is if you do go ahead and design or get a design team, that they be involved and part of that.
Councillor Mannix Flynn.
Thank you very much. Sorry, it goes without saying that certainly the city needs improvements, you know what I mean, but along those improvements it needs conservation. In relation to these public realm improvements, in particular Meath Street, there's a danger here of cultural appropriation and a sensibility being placed into this particular street that has a different cultural association altogether, and that the working class people of this community and that community would be basically ousted from their own streets. There's a great emphasis on place making and place retaining, and these particular plans remove all of that. There's nothing spectacular about Francis Street. As a matter of fact, Francis Street, in all its dilapidation, had curiosity and it had detail. Most of these particular public realm plans you can see anywhere across Europe. They're bland, they're dead, and they bring no real life to the situation at all. Most of it is designed to remove traffic off the street, and not only do they that, but they also remove people off the street as well. So I'd be very, very careful in relation to the destruction of the Liberties area. It goes without saying that the first people who destroyed the Liberties were Guinnesses, because they pulled the whole place down and built that big brewery there. So I think we need to be really, really careful of what kind of improvements that we want. We don't want to walk into a public domain or a public realm that we don't recognise anymore. We all know Meath Street. The other aspect of Meath Street is that it's a street trading street. It's a working class street where people come and do their shopping. And that will be completely and absolutely eroded if this particular plan goes ahead. Again, Lord Mayor, I know you received the petition, and I respect that. I think it's great. But I also think that the consultation process was flawed. Thank you.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Look, I mean, I think I support these public realm improvements to Meath Street. I think that the responses that have been given by some local residents and the concerns they've raised, need to be heard. And I think they have forcefully made that point throughout the consultation process. They've made the points again by email. They've made the points again by sending in this petition. I just don't agree with the point that Mannix Flynn just raised there around the destruction of the street. I mean, we're talking here about replacing some parking spaces so we can widen the footpaths to make the footpaths wider for street trading to be possible. We're talking here about some tree planting. We're talking here about some benches. That's what we're talking about. You know, there's much more deeper and wider issues around the erosion of working class areas, gentrification, whatever you want to call it. But I think putting in trees and putting in benches and widening the footpaths are not the cause of those. And to try and stand in the way of that, or to try and unpick that, or to try and stop that from happening, to try and stop investment in that community from happening, doesn't make sense to me. So there's been huge amount of effort from the area office in terms of improving Francis Street. The plans they have here for Meath Street look brilliant, and I think there needs to be detailed oversight when we get to the detailed planning section. And I know that the Director of Service in the area has committed to engaging with people throughout the detailed design, and that's what should happen. But I'm very much in favour of this part.
Councillor Moriarty, Councillor Kelsey, May-Daly.
Thanks. Just real quick, I just want to back more with this. I know we've spent a while debating about this before, but I think if the community is not happy, the community is not happy, and that's plain and simple. It's easy for us to decide what we want here for Meath Street, but ultimately it's these people up here that are living and breathing it every single day. They have their objections and they should be listened to. I think this is a unique opportunity to really think about what can be done here. Small grants to improve shop fronts. What Moira Devine just said there about the Old Famine School becoming a community space, there's a lot of imagining to be done here, and I think we need to seize that opportunity. Thanks very much.
Gaurav Mahagat, Councillor Michael Pigeon.
Yeah, thanks very much. Look, I support this. I think a lot of the plans makes more space for shopping. I think if you want a shopping street, you have to make space for people to do that. And I think for that, particularly if you want street trading, you need to have space on footpaths. And this expands and grows that with the explicit aim of growing street trading on the street. Because at the moment, there isn't a huge amount other than on the corner of Thomas Street there with the flower sellers and the van there as well. I think the idea of benches or trees being cultural appropriation or something like that, I think if you're tired or if you're old, you need to sit down on a bench when you're doing your shopping. It doesn't matter what class or group or geographic area you come from. I think that's a universal need and something that the street isn't providing for at the moment. And finally, I just think this is investment in an area where rightly people have had the criticism that there has been no investment for a long time, or it doesn't get its fair share. And I think this is an example of that. I respect and understand that not everyone agrees with it. That's absolutely fair enough, and I understand there's aspects of it. There are 2 points in particular in the petition, which I'm very glad you passed on, that I think would be raised. One, which we haven't spoken about, which is the Coombe Portico area, which could definitely do with a bit of TLC, a bit of investment, because I think that could be an area that could just be a really nice space for the wider liberties, but also for that end of Meath Street, which tends to be a little less used than the Thomas Street end. The other is also just about regular meetings, putting up information on posters, visibility and that sort of thing, which, I've raised that with council management, I know others have, and I think it would be good if they could commit to it today.
Councillor Anne Feeney.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Just like to welcome the representatives from the area here tonight. I went to school on Marksally West, and so I know Francis Street and Meath Street well for all my schooling days. And I was down Francis Street last week, and I must say I think that the public realm work that has been done there, has made a lovely impression on the area. I welcome improvements and plans for Meath Street to also improve the public realm. But I think really what often happens in these instances is there isn't enough communication with the local residents to address and maybe particular issues. And some of those issues may be for the long-term good. We talk about wanting to get people back living in our streets, in our city, like the Barcelonas, like the other cities. And if we want that, as well as making the area look nice with public realm stuff, we have to take into consideration local people's needs as well for living in the area, as well as for shops to do business. So I'd urge the designers and I'd urge Dublin City Council to sit down again and see, can they reach some consensus on some of the issues that have been highlighted by the local residents. Thank you.
Margaret, I'll go to the manager, Bruce Phillips.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. Just want to first of all put the proposal in context that the City Council have been over the last number of years putting a lot of investment into this area, and we've done some major schemes in the area: Francis Street, James's Street, and you know, they have been really, really successful. They've protected the heritage of the area, the character of the area. They've made environmental improvements and also improved the accessibility. And the scheme that we're talking about today for the proposals for Meath Street will do exactly the same. We hope to go to detailed design in early January, and that detailed design will involve consultation and communication with local businesses and local communities on an ongoing basis. So that continues and will continue until the design is finalised. Like we see it, that this design will work really, really well for both businesses and local community. It has to work well. And we feel that it will support all the current uses of the street, and it's not going to change it in any way. And I think this is really important. And we also feel very strongly, you know, that the design must work for the local community, must work for businesses, and must work for the city council. And that's the objective here. I've taken on board, you know, all the points that have been raised by the different councillors that have spoken here this evening, particularly in relation, Councillor Pigeon, who's mentioned the Coombe Portico. That's not part of the scheme, it's outside of the scope of the scheme, but we certainly can look at that, and we can certainly look at how we promote the scheme over the next couple of months in terms of making it, and how we communicate it in terms of postering if there are any suitable areas. So thanks, Lord Mayor.
Gormagat Manager, Ruth.
Is that report agreed?
Point of information. Sorry. If we don't defer this, or if I don't call for a deferral today, if it is and you appoint a design team, I suppose I'm addressing this to Bruce because you seem to be the man in the know, and we appoint a design team, can I have an email tomorrow from you to say, yes, we're going to include these leaders and these guys who have fought for that, for Meath Street, and are still fighting for it, and we're going to include them from the very beginning in any negotiations that go ahead. And also second to that, Ruth, is that if the design team don't follow those instructions from perhaps Bruce, is there an opportunity when we get to the end of the design, and probably get this a bit long, but for us to actually vote against it as well? Is it still a reserve power?
Gormagat. Bruce.
Yeah, certainly there are numerous different stakeholders on the street, and what I'm saying this evening is that during the detailed design process, we are going to go back and communicate with the stakeholders, you know, that are directly impacted by our proposals. That's the local businesses and also the local residential community. So that's my undertaking to you this evening, that we'll continue to communicate and engage on an ongoing basis throughout the design, and that will be done by the design team.
Gormagat. Bruce. Ruth.
So is that agreed? Item number 9.